All right, so today's lesson is a little weird. It's not super hard, but it's different. Um, and it's something you haven't seen before. So it's called solving for a variable. All right, so I'm going to give you a couple of definitions, some vocab first, and then we will go through what the actual math is. So the first vocab word that I'm going to talk about is the word formula. All right, and a formula is an equation that states a rule for a relationship among quantities. All right, so you guys are probably all familiar with some formulas. There's formulas for everything. You guys probably have learned how the formulas for like area of a rectangle. The area of a rectangle would be area is equal to base times height, right? Or the area of a triangle would be area is equal to 1/2 times the base times the height. There's all just different types of formulas. There's formulas to convert between Fahrenheit and Celsius. There's another formula, the distance formula, which is distance is equal to um, rate times time. There's all types of formulas, all right? So a formula is going to tell you the relationship amongst quantities. So basically, like for the area one, what they're telling you is the relationship is, well, if you multiply the base times the height, you'll get the area. So formulas tell you the relationship amongst quantities. Now, you'll notice that all these formulas have multiple variables. We're used to equations that say something like 2x plus 4 equals 9. And there's only one variable. The variable here is x, right? Even when you have variables on both sides, everything up until now has been the same variable. There might be 2x on one side and 5x on the other side, but they're both just x. Now you can see that there's different variables. Like in this first formula, you can see there's a b, and there's also an h, and there's also an a. So there's lots of different letters and variables, and we need to talk about how we could solve equations when there's more than one variable, which is what we're going to be doing today. All right? All right, so the next vocab word that we need to talk about is called a literal equation. All right? So let me get a different color here. A literal equation. All right, and a literal equation is an equation with two or more variables. And honestly, I probably should have given you this vocab word before I gave you the vocab word formula, because formulas are types of literal equations. A formula is a literal equation because it has two or more variables. Not every single literal equation is a formula, but formulas are examples of literal equations. So we have formula is one of our words, and then literal equation is the other one. All right, so those are the two vocab words that we really want to talk about today. So I'm now going to give you steps on how to solve. All right, and I know you don't totally understand what I'm talking about yet, but as we do practice problems, you'll start understanding what's going on. So I'm going to give you the steps now that we're going to be going back to while we're solving. So, steps. All right, so step one. Step one is to locate the variable that you're asked to solve for. All right, like I said, today's equations are going to have more than one variable, so they're always going to have to tell you what variable they want you to solve for, because in the other equations we've been doing, there's only been one variable, so you've known, okay, I have to solve for x, or I have to solve for y. But when there's more than one variable, the problem is going to have to tell you which one they want you to solve for. So once they tell you, then you have to locate it. So that's step one. Find the variable that you're being asked to solve for. All right. Step two. Identify the operations being performed on the variable that you're trying to solve for. And the order in which they are applied. All right, last step, step three, is use inverse operations to undo operations and isolate the variable. All right, if you're thinking to yourself right now that you don't understand anything that I'm talking about, that's okay. Okay, now that you have the steps, now we're going to start doing some practice, and we're going to be going back to the steps and talking about them piece one by one so you know what I'm actually talking about. All right, so if we were in a normal class, I would give you some time, but since you could pause it, I'm just going to keep going. All right, so here is an equation. I'm actually going to give you a formula. So I put this down a second ago, D equals RT. And this is the formula for distance. This is telling you that to find the distance, distance is equal to rate times time. Rate is going to be your speed, so how fast you're going. And the T stands for time, meaning how long you're going for. So if you multiply your speed times however long you're actually traveling for, that will give you your overall distance. All right. Now, there's three variables here, D, R, and T, right? Now, I'm going to highlight one of the variables to tell you which variable I want you to solve for. So I just highlighted the R. That's the one I want you to solve for. When I say solve for, that means I want that variable to be all by itself. I want to know what R equals. Right now, this formula is telling me what D equals, but I don't want to know what D equals. I want to know what R equals. That's the variable I'm solving for. So we just did the first thing. We located the variable that you're being asked to solve for. Step two says to identify the operations on this variable. So right now, if you look at R, you have to ask yourself, just like if it was a different equation, and I'm going to give you an equation that you're used to. If I said something like 5 equals, actually, let's make that 15 equals 3x. All right, in that type of an equation, you know very easily, okay, there's my variable, and I'm going to say, okay, 3 is being multiplied to x, so I'll do the opposite of multiplying by 3, which is dividing by 3. And if I divide by 3 on one side, divide by 3 on the other side, and I get x equals 5. Well, same concept. The only difference is we're not going to be using numbers as much. So if we're trying to solve for r, we have to ask ourselves what's happening to r. Well, r is being multiplied by t. So the opposite of multiplying by t is dividing by t. The t's will go away, but if you do it on one side, you have to do it on the other side. Now you need to rewrite your final answer. Now you can see that r is all by itself. The t's went away, so you're left with r equals, now I know that you can't do d divided by t and get an actual answer. You leave it as d over t. So what that means is you could find the rate, which I told you that r stands for rate, which is the same as speed. So to find the rate, you would do the distance divided by the time. That's the new formula that you just created by solving for r. If you want to know the distance, you have to do the rate times the time. But if you want to know the rate, meaning the speed, you're going to do the distance divided by the time. So that's how you solve for a variable. The same way we've been solving for variables, except now there's more than one variable involved. So I'm going to give you guys one to try. I'm going to give you, let's see. Let me find one that's not too difficult for you. Actually, I take it back. Let's try another one together. All right. What if I said something like this? This one's going to be more difficult. F equals 9 fifths C plus 32. All right. And I want you to solve for C. Okay. You can see there's more than one variable in here. There's an F and a C, and this is actually the formula to convert Celsius to Fahrenheit. But if I want to solve for C, I have to ask myself, what is happening to C, right? So we know that C is being multiplied by 9 fifths, but we also know that 32 is being added. So we're going to get rid of adding before multiplication, just like we've done in the past. So we're going to get rid of that plus 32 by subtracting 32. Whatever you do on one side, you have to do on the other side. Now, I know you don't know what F minus 32 equals off the top of your head. So instead, we're just going to leave it as F minus 32. You don't know what F is, so you can't say what F minus 32 is. We'll just leave it as F minus 32 equals 9 fifths C. That's still left, right? Now, 9 fifths is a fraction, and it's being multiplied to C. Now, I know that the opposite of multiplication is division. However, I've talked to you guys about when you have a fraction being multiplied to a variable, instead of saying we're dividing, we're going to actually multiply by the reciprocal. So I'll multiply this side by the reciprocal, which is 5/9. I don't have a lot of room. Hold on. Okay, the 5's go away, the 9's go away. But if I do it on one side, I have to do it on the other side. Now, when I do it on this side to the F minus 32, I want you to realize that you're multiplying by 5/9, not just to the F, not just to the negative 32, but to all of it. So you have to put it in parentheses to show that that 5/9 is being multiplied to both. So you would rewrite your final answer as, and I know the final answer looks weird. You're used to your answers being just numbers. But your final answer would be C is equal to 5/9 times, in parentheses, F minus 32. And that would be your final answer. That's what C equals. You don't need to start distributing. If you want to, you could, but you really don't need to. This is good enough to show that that's what C is. All right, so to find the Celsius, you take whatever the Fahrenheit is, you subtract 32, and then you multiply by 5/9. So that would be the new equation. All right, I'm going to let you guys try one now. So F equals I minus GT. And I want you to solve for I. You're solving for I. So pause it, try it, and then we will talk about it. All right, now that you've tried this, I'm still going to draw my line down the middle. I'm solving for I. So you have to ask yourself, well, what is being done to I? Well, you should notice that this whole term, this is all one term, GT, is being subtracted from I. So the opposite of subtracting GT would be adding GT. That goes away. Add GT on that side. So your final answer would be I equals F plus GT. I know these answers look weird, all right? But that's it. And I know you're probably also asking, what is the point? You'll realize once we start getting into other chapters why this is really important that you know how to do this. All right, let us continue. Oops, my bad. All right, I apologize about that. All right, so let's continue. Let's look at one like this. We'll do this one together. S equals W minus 10E all over M. Okay? And I want you to solve for W. So we're going to do this one together. All right. So you should notice that 10E is being subtracted and M it's being divided by, right? So I know this goes against what I usually tell you about getting rid of addition and subtraction before you get rid of multiplication and division. But anytime you're trying to solve for a variable and it's in the numerator, meaning the top of a fraction, you need to get rid of the denominator first. So we need to get rid of that M right away. And you could see that W is being divided by M. So we're going to do the opposite of dividing by M, which is multiplying by M. Right away, that gets rid of the fraction. So that way, because right now that's not W. That's all, it's locked into a fraction. We have to get rid of that fraction right away. So like I said, the opposite of dividing by M is multiplying by M. But if I do that on one side, I have to do that on the other side. So you could think of it as M times S or S times M. Either way, you end up with SM or MS, same thing. Okay, we don't need to put the multiply sign in there. Is equal to W minus 10E. The M went away on the other side. All right, we're still solving for W though. Well, we have to still ask ourselves, what is still being done to W? And you should notice that 10E is still being subtracted. So I'm going to do the opposite of subtracting 10E, which is adding 10E on both sides. So your final answer, you always need to rewrite your final answer because this here is messy. So W equals, we have SM plus 10E. And that would be the answer. Again, I realize how weird this looks, and I apologize, but it is what it is. All right, let's try one that's pretty simple. M minus N equals 5. And you're going to be solving for N. So pause it, try it, and we'll talk about it in a second. All right, now that you've tried this, let's talk about it. So you're solving for N. Now, I want you to realize it says negative N. So technically that's a negative 1 in the front that's being multiplied. And since the M is positive, the M is technically being added. So I don't want you to rewrite it, but I want you to realize that M minus N is the same thing as saying negative N plus M, or negative 1M, 1N, I should say. But now that we know that negative 1 is being multiplied and M is being added, well, we're going to get rid of addition before we get rid of that multiplication. So I'm going to get rid of that addition by subtracting M, and I'll subtract it on the other side. So I'm left with negative N is equal to 5 minus M. Okay, make sure you're not putting m minus 5. It's the m that's negative. If you want to put negative m plus 5, that would work too, as long as you realize that the m is negative and the 5 is positive. All right, now we're not done because there's still a negative sign in front of the n. So to get rid of that negative sign, technically it's a negative 1 that's being multiplied, so I'll do the opposite, which is divide by negative 1 on both sides. Now, we're not just dividing, let me go back for a second. We're not just dividing the 5 by negative 1 or just the m by negative 1. We're dividing all of it by negative 1. So I'm going to put that fraction part over the entire thing. And your final answer would be n equals, now there's a couple ways we could write this. For today, in this lesson, I would accept you writing it like this, 5 minus m all over negative 1. That would be acceptable for today's lesson. As we get further into the year, we're going to learn that you have to rewrite it differently. You basically are taking each term, 5, and dividing it by negative 1. And also, you're going to be taking the negative m and dividing by negative 1. So another way you could write this is n equals 5 divided by negative 1 is negative 5, and negative m divided by negative 1 is plus m. So that's another way you could write it. And it's a better way, honestly, to write it this way, but you don't have to write it this way today. If you want to write it the way I put it here, that's fine. But if you want to take it one step further and actually divide out each term to simplify it, that would be even better. All right? All right. Here's a weird one. This one says m over k equals x. Now, the variable that we're solving for right now, I'm going to say, is k. Now, here's the problem. I want you to be very careful when you start thinking about what's being done to k. If you're saying that k is being divided by m, that is not true. K is not being divided by m. M is being divided by k. So when you start asking yourself, what is k or what is m doing to k, you don't really know. So when the variable is in the denominator, you can't really say what's happening to m, or to k, I'm sorry. You can't say that it's being divided, it's not. So what you're going to do you see how this is a fraction and then the other side is not a fraction? We're going to make the other side a fraction, this x, by putting it over 1. And we're going to do something called cross multiply, which I have a feeling you guys have done in the past, but I'm going to show you. We're going to multiply diagonally across. We're going to say k times x, which is kx, equals, and then we're going to multiply across the other way, 1 times m, which is just 1m, which we could just write as m. All right, so we just turned this second part, x, into a fraction by putting it over 1, and then we cross multiplied, and we got this new equation. But that new equation is still the same, it's equivalent. What we just did didn't change anything, it just changed the way it looks. So that way you could easily see, okay, if I'm solving for k, now you could easily see what's being done to k. Well, x is being multiplied to k, so we'll do the opposite of multiplying by x, which is divide by x, and we'll divide the other side by x. And your final answer would be k is equal to m over x. I'm going to give you one to try like that. All right, d equals m over v, and I want you to solve for v. So you're going to pause the video, try it, and then we will talk about it. All right, let's talk about it. So once again, the variable that you're trying to solve for is in the denominator, and you don't know what's happening to v. V is not being multiplied to, or v is not being divided by m. If it said v over m, then yes, you would say v is being divided by m, but that's not what it says. It says m over v. So when you start asking yourself what's happening to v, you can't really say. You don't know what's happening to v. So I told you when that happens, you're going to make the other side a fraction. So I'm going to take this d and I'm going to put it over 1. And now that I did that, now I could cross multiply. All right, so when I cross multiply, I'm going to say d times v, which we'll say is dv, is equal to 1 times m, which is just m. And now, don't forget that v is what we're solving for. Now it's pretty easy to see that v is being multiplied by d. So we'll do the opposite of multiplying by d, which is dividing by d on both sides. And you get v is equal to m over d as your final answer. All right. I know that this is a weird lesson, so I'm going to do a couple more practice problems before I let you guys start working on your assignment. All right. So here is the next one. I'm going to let you practice it. 5 minus b equals 2x. And I want you to solve for x. So pause it, try it, and we will talk about it. All right. Now that you've tried it, let's talk about it. Well, we're solving for x. It's pretty easy to see that x is being multiplied by 2. So we'll do the opposite of multiplying by 2, which is dividing. If I do that on one side, I have to do it on the other side. Now, I said this already, so make sure you're being careful. You're not just dividing one of the terms by 2 on the other side. You're dividing the whole entire thing by 2. So your final answer would be x is equal to 5 minus b all over 2. Now, I told you you could leave your answer like this, or you could take it one step further and say x equals 5 divided by 2, and then negative b over 2 would be negative minus b over 2, which you could take it even further and say, okay, 5 over 2 is the same thing as 2.5. So x equals 2.5 minus b over 2. Anything over 2 is like saying 1/2 b. So technically that would be the best way of writing it. But if that's not totally making sense to you right now, you could leave your answer like that for today and for this chapter. All right? All right, let's try another one. All right, let's try to give you a hard one. All right. PV is equal to NRT. And also I want you to realize that the capital versus lowercase actually make a difference, because when you have formulas, sometimes there's going to be the same letter, but one's going to be lowercase and one's going to be capital. So when you're solving these, you need to write them the way they're written. So if they're lowercase, you need to use lowercase. Like you can see that the N here is a lowercase n. And the R, T, the P, and the V, they're all capital. Okay, so that kind of matters. Don't change that. All right, so we're solving for, let's see, which one do I want us to solve for? Let's solve for R. Oops. We're solving for R. So pause it, try it, and we will talk about it. All right, so now that you've tried it, let's do it. So you should notice that R is being multiplied not just by N, but also by T. Now, I'm going to tell you, you could do this all in one step. Instead of dividing by N and then dividing by T, that's going to be confusing. Instead, I'm going to tell you, you could divide by the N and the T at the same time, and the N goes away and the T goes away. And we'll divide the other side by NT. Your final answer is R equals PV all over lowercase n, capital T. That would be your final answer there. All right, let's try 2 more and then I'll let you go. All right. 4y plus 3x equals 5. 4y plus 3x equals 5, and you guys are solving for x. Pause it and try it, please. All right, let's talk about this. All right, so you should notice that x is being multiplied by 3, but then this whole term 4y is being added. So I want to get, and it's positive, that's why it's being added. So I want to get rid of the addition first. So I'm going to get rid of that adding 4y by doing the opposite, which is subtracting by 4y. I'll subtract the other side by 4y. And I'm left with 3x is equal to 5 minus 4y. Last but not least, we're trying to get the x by itself, and it's being multiplied by 3. So we're going to divide by 3. Again, we don't just divide one of the pieces by 3, we divide everything by 3. So you're left with x equals, you could write this as 5 minus 4y over 3, or if you take it one step further, you could say 5 divided by 3, which is going to be 1 2/3, right? Minus 4/3 y, which is 1 1/3 y. So that was me dividing the 5 divided by 3 and the negative 4y divided by 3. But again, for today, that's good enough. All right, I'm going to give you one more. All right, the last one in our notes. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. A equals 1/2 BH, and I want you to solve for B. Okay, pause it and try it, please. All right, so you should notice that B is being multiplied, or let me rephrase that. H is being multiplied to B, and so is 1/2. Now, I know I told you a minute ago that you could divide by all of it at once, but you can't really divide by a half. How do we get rid of a fraction that's being multiplied to a variable? I'm hoping by now you guys know that you multiply by the reciprocal, right? So I'm going to get rid of that 1/2 right away by multiplying by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2 over 1, which is the same thing as just saying we're multiplying by 2, right? So that goes away. I multiplied this side by 2. Let me rewrite what I have now. 2 times a is 2a. I don't need to put that multiply sign. Equals, now I'm left with BH. Again, we're solving for B. So B is being multiplied by H, so we'll do the opposite of multiplying by H, which is dividing by H, and I'll divide all of it by H. So you get B is equal to 2a over H. Now, you cannot rewrite this one any other way because the 2a is all one term. So you can't do 2 divided by h and a divided by h. It would have to have a plus or a minus sign in between for you to do that. For this one, this is the only way you can write it, is 2a all over h. All right? I know there was a lot going on here. If you have any questions, let me know. And make sure you're getting your assignment done. All right? That is our lesson.